Okay. We are on Daf Mem something on the base. Mem on the base. Okay, thank you. And on Mem Hema base, we are at where it says Rabbi Huna b'Shem Rabbi Yirmiyah, almost at the end of the page. It is Rabbi Huna, 1, 2, 3, 4.
9 lines from the bottom.
Yeah, 9 lines at the bottom. First word in line is Huna. Rabbi Huna b'Shem Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Huna said name Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Meir Hoya Omer. Rabbi Meir used to say, Sofin Tluya b'Shai Mos Hashanah. This is consistent with what we learned in the name Rabbi Meir yesterday, that you can always, that Tluya is the same thing as Tmeya, and you can burn it even the rest of the year, not just in Erev Pesach. The Tani we learned, Truma Tluya, if you have a batch of Truma Tluya, and the next word should be and Tehoira, Sarfin son, you can burn them Erev Shabbos Im Chashecha. You burn them Erev Shabbos, just be when Erev Pesach comes out on Shabbos. You burn them Erev Shabbos just before nightfall. Divrei Meir. You say you leave them till tomorrow morning. So ask the Gemara V'Yithro Shachris. Now the Gemara's kasha is, if you hold it, you can burn it the rest of the year. So why didn't you burn it that morning? Why have to wait till nightfall? Just burn it that morning. It's tuya. Burn it that morning. Says the Gemara, Tipoter b'shni satzav lo nesoraf. So I bet a lazy bum. You forgot to do it that morning. That's why we tell him, well, at least do it just before Shabbos begins, because once Shabbos begins, it's too late, right? Teidel choshu kate. You should know that. You should know that this is true. The Tani Tmeya. It says that also there that you burn Tmeya just before nightfall. Below Tmeya, there's certainly no reason to wait. It must be about a case where you were lazy and hadn't burned it till then, so at least you should burn it right before nightfall. Rabbi Abba Mori, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Abba Mori, the brother of Rabbi Yossi, so gave an alternate teretz. He said, "Tipotish shenol otur b'osashah." The reason why we wait just before nightfall is you should be able to burn it earlier. The reason we're waiting is because shenol tuma b'osashah, it only became tamei right then. Therefore, from there we do not derive anything, meaning it's entirely possible that the rest of the year could burn it also, no matter when it became tluya. Here you waited to right before nightfall, only because that happens to be when it became tamei. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Shimon, Shneim Amru Davar Echad. Rabbi Shua and Rabbi Shimon both said the same thing. Now, Rabbi Yoshua is Rabbi Yoshua who says in the first Mishnah that you can reveal a barrel which became clear, but do not destroy it, do not ruin it. And Rabbi Shimon both said the same thing. Now, what's Rabbi Shimon? It's not Rabbi Shimon which we've seen yet. Rabbi Shimon here, although we did mention Rabbi Shimon yesterday, which said that at Erev Pesach you burn Tomei and Toli together, but that's not the Rabbi Shimon we're referring to here. We're mentioning the Rabbi Shimon. We're referring to the Rabbi Shimon who holds in Masechta Bechoros that if you have a Bechor which is going to die unless you let its blood, you're allowed to bloodlet it, even though that bloodletting might cause it to have a mum. So here we see a parallel. The Gemara says that in both cases we see that since there is a problem, one is allowed to exacerbate the problem. In the case of Truma, since it got a suffix Truma, one can exacerbate the problem by leaving it in a revealed or perilous place. And over there, in the case of the Bechor, since he has the perilous problem, which requires bloodletting, one is allowed to exacerbate the problem, even though that may well lead to making a mum, and then, in that case, it'll become Ois Bechor, no longer can be sacrificed, nonetheless you're allowed to let its blood. Rabbi Yilo said, now we're on the top of Memvav Amud Aleph, Rabbi Yilo said, Rabbi Yoshua de Terumos, Rabbi Shimon de Bechoros, that Rabbi Yoshua of Terumos which you mentioned, Rabbi Shimon of Bechoros which you mentioned, Lo Hadein Model Hadein. It could be that neither Rabbi Yoshua agrees to Rabbi Shimon, Lo Hadein Model Hadein. and nor does Rabbi Shimon concede to Rabbi Yehoshua. How so? Could be Rabbi Yehoshua didn't allow you to go and do a maisa to an animal. All he allowed you to do was cause some problem to become exacerbated by revealing the battle, but not to do a direct deed. So who says he concedes to Rabbi Shimon? And not vice versa either. Directing to the object, right. Could be Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon only allowed it over there because otherwise the animal was going to kick the proverbial bucket. But by us, where the truma is only a suffix right now, right? It's not a definite danger, so perhaps Rabbi Shimon would not agree that you're allowed to diminish your safeguarding of the truma. Rabbi Zira said, Mistabra, nevertheless, it makes sense to say Rabbi Shimon Moedel Rabbi Yehoshua. Now in the Yerushalmi's inimitable fashion, that means it makes sense to say that Rabbi Yehoshua concedes to Rabbi Shimon. Even though the exact Hebrew words mean that Rabbi Shimon concedes to Rabbi Yehoshua. What it means is that Rabbi Yehoshua concedes to him. Okay, so it's like this, okay? It makes sense to say that Rabbi Yehoshua concedes to him. In other words, by Bechor is no choice. So logic dictates Rabbi Yehoshua will agree to Rabbi Shimon, you can bloodlet the Bechor, right? Whereas Rabbi Yehoshua lo model Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon will not concede to him. In other words, Rabbi Shimon will not concede that here, by Truma, you can allow it to become revealed, because here, there is a choice. Maybe it's not Tomei, so Lee can maintain proper safeguarding. Okay? Rabbi Bun Bar Chia Kumi Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Bun Bar Chia asks for Rabbi Zira. Al Daitcha, according to you...
That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, come on. It took me a long time to figure that out. You're saying not make any sense?
What makes more sense is to say that Rabbi Shimon would be molded to Rabbi Yehoshua, because you're doing an indirect action, and Rabbi Yehoshua would not necessarily be molded to Rabbi Shimon because it's a more direct action to the object.
That was the previous opinion.
Yeah.
He disagrees.
I understand.
Rabbi Zira disagrees. He holds that it's because since the Bechor is going to drop, the overriding score is that if you don't bloodlet the Bechor, it's going to drop dead. So everybody's going to agree. Why lose the Bechor? That's the bottom line. So that's what his perspective is. Okay, even though it's a direct Maisa. Right, it's not looking at the quad. Well, you're really looking at the direct Groma aspect, right? Which is more dimensional. They say it doesn't matter, because ultimately the animal's life is paramount. Okay, if you a dead Bechor does nobody any good. So better to have a live Bechor with a mum than to have a dead Bechor. Okay? So Rabbi Bar Chia Balkum Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Bar Chia asked for Rabbi Zira. Al Daitcha, according to you, the Tamar, you said Rabbi Shimon, Yoidel Rabbi Yehoshua, then Rabbi Yehoshua concedes to Rabbi Shimon. V'atina, then we learn Moedim Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehoshua. Then we learn that both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua hold Shesarfin Zulatzma v'Zulatzma. If you have Truma, which is Chametz, and some of it is Kluya, and some of it is Tmeya. Or is it Kluya and Tmeya? No, Tmeya and Tahora. So the halacha is if you some of the Truma is Torah and some of it is Tomei, and it's Erev Pesach. Now this is Erev Pesach right before midday, when we burn Chametz. Modern. So modern Eliezer Yeshua is serving Zulatzma. You burn the Tahar Truma by itself, and you burn the Tomei Truma by itself. Ask the Gemara, wait a minute. If you're saying that Rabbi Yehoshua concedes to Rabbi Shimon, that wherever something is going to be completely lost if you don't do something to it, so we're allowed to bend the rules and bloodlet by Bechor. So here too, let's bend the rules. Anyway, imminently they're both going to be lost, right? Because imminently they're going to become usher because they're chametz, right? So what the heck? Burn them both together. Why can't you burn them both together? So so it's true. If it was up to me, I would say a very big chiluk, because thereby Bechor was saving the Bechor by doing this. So that's why it's permitted to do something, even though it will cause a mum and ultimately rid the Bechor of its status. But here, by burning Truma on Erev Pesach, so, what are we gaining? We're not gaining anything by doing that. We're eradicating the Truma. So therefore, perhaps, even Rabbi Shimon would agree that you can't burn the Truma together, the Tomei and the Torah. But the Gemara doesn't give that answer. Amalei, so he says, Tamon, over there, by Erev Pesach, Tahayra Yidvar Torah. Midaraisa, it's Torah until nightfall. Meaning, midoraisa, you can eat the chametz until mamish nighttime, right? The extra 6 hours is only the rabbanon. So therefore, it ain't over yet, midoraisa. Hi, midorabanan. Yeah, the chametz before the 6 hours, the rabbanon. It's a special din, the rice, if you're shechting in Korban Pesach, you're not allowed to have any chametz in your house. But not that the chametz itself is usher. You made a gezerah, you mean the rabbis, to burn it. So therefore, just because you're a gezerah doesn't mean that it's really completely lost and gone. So therefore, in that case, you have to burn it separately, the Torah from the Tomei. So that's why B'komako. Wait a minute. Granted, it's a gezerah d'Rabbanan, but the gezerah d'Rabbanan brings in another issue here. Lo nifsla b'esach hadas. Once truma is not properly safeguarded, it becomes puzzle in a psul called hesach hadas. It's not being safeguarded properly. You have been distracted from it. So v'lo chein omar Rabbi Yochanan, then Rabbi Yochanan say hesach hadas var Torah. Hesach hadas is the dvar Torah. That if you not shomer properly, it's also midoraisa. And where do we see that? We see this here in the case of the second barrel. A barrel of truma that will imminently fall into a lower wine press, which is tamei. We said you're even allowed to put it into tamei kalim. Why is that? So the Gemara says, interesting, svara chavishniya is like Rabbi Meir, it's like Rabbi Meir who says tahira. In other words, that there you're allowed, since imminently the stuff is going to fall anyway, right? Its truma is going to fall into lower wine press, which is tamei. So a mayor allows you to put it into tamei kalim because it's already like hesach hadas. You're already distracted from it because it's imminently going to lose its whole status anyway. So we see here that midoraisa loses its status, and similarly,
We're suggesting that that's the story of Mary.
Right. And that's why, according to Meir, you can burn Tmeya with Torah on Erev Pesach. I forgot to mention that. That's why on Erev Pesach, you can burn together Toli and Tomei. So in any event, Toli and Tohar or Tomei and Tohar.
Before up to now, we were just saying that simply the objects can be lost anyway in a moment. So what's the difference if you...
Right. And now it's throwing a new spur of Hetzach Hadas. The distraction makes it Tomei. Okay, or makes it tummy the rice even. So and similarly, achusas adan Rabbi Shimon Torah. Interestingly enough, the Yerushalmi draws the parallel between this case by Truma and the case of Bechor. And says the reason Rabbi Shimon's matir is an amazing Yerushalmi parallel. And the reason Rabbi Shimon's matir to put a movement to the Bechor and bloodlet it is because there was hesech hadas on this Bechor, right? Because once it has a disease. So you do not focus on it as a Bechor anymore. Which is a very extraordinarily strange svara to apply to Bechor, because Bechor, by something which has to do with Tumah and Tara, then Hesach Hadas is an issue. If you don't safeguard it, it's going to become Tameh. But by Bechor, it's not a Tumah Tara issue, it's a live animal, it's not getting Tameh, right? Yet nonetheless, the Yerushalmi says that it's comparable, that there, because you're Mesiach Das, that's why you're allowed to put the movement to it. Okay, so all this is part of a kasha. The more it's all build up to a kasha. Again, according to Rabbi Yeshua, why, if it's right before nightfall, am I not allowed to burn? According to Rabbi Yeshua, why, if it's right before the 6th hour, am I not allowed to burn the Torah with the Tmeya? It should be possible because of Hesach Hadas, because I'm getting distracted from it. It's going to be also to midrabanan, and that of itself should make it Hesach Hadas Doraisa, and it should be a puzzle. Amar Lei, so he said a fascinating thing. You know what? By Chometz, to the last possible moment, you're Meshamer it. You watch it. Why are you watching it? Shu Meshamer Shlotiga Betaros Acheros. You're watching that it shouldn't touch anything else which is Torah. In other words, there's two types of shmira. Sometimes you're shomer something positively. Sometimes you're shomer something negatively. Sometimes you're shomer the truma because you want to keep it Torah. Here you'd be shomer the truma because you want to keep it away from anything which is not chametz. You want to keep your chametz away from your not chametz. So until the last possible moment, it's until it's burnt up. It's never ever hesach hadas because you're constantly safeguarding to keep it far away from your regular good food. So therefore, You can't burn it together with tamei because in and of itself never became fully tamei. So Rabbi Yitzchak the son of Rabbi Chia, the scribe. Do you know the word kesuva there? What? Beruba. Okay. Nobody knows exactly what beruba means. So that's why some people change it to Rabbi Chia Ruba, because Rabbi Chia the Great was called Rabbi Chia Ruba. But he brings down here that we didn't know any son of Rabbi Chia Ruba whose name was Rabbi Yitzchak. No, there was no such person that we know of. So therefore we assume it's Rabbi Yitzchak, the son of Rabbi Chia Kesuva, the scribe, who used to write. So he said, so let's take this further. What about if Taka you're burning the Truma on Erev Pesach? You're already in the process of burning it. Is that Hesach Hadas? At that point, can you mix the Tamei and Torah stuff? Yes. When he puts it on the coals, then Taka at that point is already considered to be Hesach Hadas, and then you can mix the Tamei and Torah stuff together.
So are we still left with the theory of Hesach Hadas by Bechoros?
Yeah. We never fell off of it. Amazing thing. Right. We're going to see a couple of other amazing things in this regard. Amar Rabbi Mani Rabbi Simi. Rabbi Mani said to Rabbi Simi, Aton Omin, you said Yodei. Now there's a typo. It should not be Rabbi Eliezer, but it should be Rabbi Shimon. Okay? You see you have a Reish Aleph, right? Rabbi Eliezer. It's supposed to be Reish Shin, Rabbi Shimon. Yodei Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yeshua. You said that Rabbi Yeshua concedes to Rabbi Shimon. I got a problem with this. I feel Rabbi Yeshua leisu Rabbi Yeshua. Even Rabbi Yeshua is not Rabbi Yeshua. Meaning I have a contradiction internally in Rabbi Yeshua. I have a problem with Rabbi Yeshua internally. Because Rabbi Shimon says, the same Rabbi Shimon who says, you cannot burn Tamei and Tor together, holds you can burn Tamei and Toli together. You can't burn Tamei and Torah Truma together. You can't burn Tamei and Toli together. It's a contradiction. Why is Toli any worse than Torah? If you can't burn Torah with Tamei, well, how can you burn Toli with Tamei? Amalei, so he said Tanoinim. They're machlokas Tanoim. Hacha Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Yeshua. Ha Tamon Rabbi Shimon b'shem Rabbi Yeshua. Two different Tanoim who have different versions in Rabbi Yeshua. Now this Rabbi Yossi, this Rabbi Shimon are not Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon by us, or Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon by the Gemara Pesachim. We're just going to ignore it because we're not learning it right now. But the bottom line is that you're right. There are two different Gersos, Rabbi Yeshua. What are you allowed to do? Are you allowed to burn the Tamei with the Torah, or you're not allowed to burn totally with Torah? And we're going to leave that alone. Go on to the next issue. Vilna says in the first barrel case, about which the Safek Tumah occurred, don't do anything to it. Just leave it. Okay? Don't reveal it. Don't cover it. Just leave status quo. Talmudim, let's take that further and plug it into our comparison to Bechor. Bechor shach sodam, a Bechor which is seized by blood, meaning it needs its blood let. Okay? Afilu meis, even if the Bechor is going to drop dead, and makizin lo sodam, you can't let its blood. Diver Rabbi Yehuda, Kohen Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, you let it drop dead. Chachamim say you can't let its blood, but you have to make sure not to let it get a mum in the process. If you did make a mum, so we fine you, and we say if you can't regard it as chulin based on that mum, and you can't shecht it as chulin until it gets another mum. Rabbi Shimon, who's the sheet of which we already saw, Oimer, says yakis, you may let its blood. Even though you're making a mum in it as a result. Rabbi Avo b'shem Rabbi Lezer said, Avo and Rabbi Lezer made a direct comparison between all three of the opinions in our Mishnah and the three opinions there. He said, Asya the Rabbi Yehuda Kram Gamliel. That Rabbi Yehuda said, don't touch it. If it dies, it dies. That's our Kram Gamliel. In our Mishnah says, if you have a Safek Tumah in the Truma, leave status quo. Don't do anything with it. Don't exacerbate, don't diminish, don't do anything. Udrabanan, and the rabbis over there would say, you're allowed to let its blood, but you have to be careful, meticulous, not to make a mum. Rabbi Eliezer, it's like Rabbi Eliezer who says in our Mishnah, that if a Safek Tumah occurred to Truma, then you have to make sure to safeguard it. Increase its safeguard. Don't diminish the safeguard, increase the safeguard. So to there he holds, they hold like Rabbi Eliezer, that if you have a problem with the Bechor, let its blood, but you have to make sure not to make a mum in it. With Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yoshua, and Rabbi Shimon is like Rabbi Yoshua, as we mentioned before, that the two shittas may well go hand in hand, that since it's a case where there is a loss, you're allowed to exacerbate that loss and even let its blood in a way which may potentially give it a mum. You don't have to be worried about that. Just like over here, you're allowed to reveal the barrel which got the Savik Tum on it. V'atanya, didn't we learn? Wait a minute. How can you compare the two? V'atanim Shem Rabbi Shimon, Yaki, Zavli Shumiskavin, Latzos Bomum. There's bright which goes even further. It says you can let the blood and make a mum intentionally at that point. It's like once you're allowed to let the blood, you're even allowed to make a mum. Now that's certainly not like Rabbi Yeshua and our Mishnah, because Rabbi Yeshua and our Mishnah just said you can reveal the barrel. It didn't say you can actually be matame it. So how can you compare the two?
You're saying Rabbi Yeshua or Rabbi Shimon saying this?
Rabbi Shimon. Does it say in your Gemara Rabbi Yeshua?
No, it says Rabbi Shimon.
No, it's Rabbi Shimon there. So the question is, how does Rabbi Shimon square away with that with Rabbi Yeshua anymore? If this brights the name Rabbi Shimon, which goes much further and says you can even intentionally make a mum in the bloodletting process, that's not like Rabbi Yeshua in our Mishnah.
Although it's certainly consistent with what Shimon said before.
No, but before he just said if you make a mum, you make a mum. Nishkeferlach. Now he's going even further. He'd say you can mamish make a mum. Okay. So it says more asik Rabbi Yeshua achraya. That's going like the best second barrel, because in the second barrel we're going to say in Rabbi Yeshua that a barrel of truma that will imminently fall to a lower wine press, which is tamei. Rabbi Yeshua there says you can put it into tamei kalim, so you can be mamish metame it. So that's like this. Rabbi Shimon says you can mamish put a mum in this animal by letting its blood if it's sick enough that it needs bloodletting. Okay, so I'm going to have Bun Bar Chia. Kumi Rabbi Zira. Right, Boom Barachi wanted to say in front of his here, you know what? I'm changing around that whole Mishnah in Bechorus. Tati Potter Bekachim Shu Chai B'Achriyus, and I want to say that Rabbi Shimon is not talking. I'm changing around the Bryce actually. I want to say Bryce is not talking about by Bechor. By Bechor, you're not allowed to put a mum. Chas v'shol. It's talking about a shlomim, a carbon which already had a mum. It had a mum already. Mum number one already had. And it's a kachim shuchai b'achriyusan. It's a kachim where it got a mum, and now you have to replace it. You have to redeem it and replace it. Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon is allowing you in that case to make an additional mum in it. Now what's the chiddush? The chord has one mum already. It's possible you can make more mum in it, right? It already is a psuli hamukdashim. It's possible it can't be used from this pair. So
can you reread that last part? Because I don't think our Gemara's had it. After you said first you said Vasik Rabbi Shimon Achraya.
Yeah.
Then after that starts getting
Asik Rabbi Yeshua Achraya.
Rabbi Yeshua Achraya, I'm sorry.
Okay, let me still look at that. Where are we? Mevav Ralph, right?
Like the 4 lines from the bottom.
Okay, Vasik Rabbi Yeshua Achraya. Now, Rabbi Avo, you have Rabbi Avo B'Shem Shimon Luckage, right? You're missing a whole line here.
Right.
Okay, so the whole line you're missing is Amar Rabbi Bun Bar Chia, Kumi Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Bun Bar Chia said the name Rabbi Zira. Tipater, we're talking about a case b'kachim shuchai b'achrayusan, of kachim where you're chayiv and they're achrayas, meaning that you have to replace it because it got a mum, and now the carbon has to be replaced. And that's Rabbi Shimon. That's the case Rabbi Shimon is talking about when he says you're allowed to make a mum in it. Now, what's the chiddush? The choretz pash you can make a mum in it. Ray's got a mum. Means really what it means is that
you got to replace it anyway.
Right. That's part. So the chiddush is nonetheless, if you make an additional mum, you're diminishing its value, and it's got to be sold. But hectares are going to make money off this animal. They're going to sell it and make money, right? So therefore, the chiddush is that nonetheless I'm allowed to make another mum in it in order to let its blood, because after all, it's in danger now, so I'm allowed to let its blood. Okay? Rabbi Avo B'Shem Rabbi Shimon, now back to what you have. Rabbi Shimon Shlogi said, time at Rabbi Yehuda, the logic of Rabbi Yehuda is the chsiv, it says, the Rabbi Yehuda says that you're not allowed to make a mum in a bechor, even if it's going to die. The Chsika says, Rakis domo lo sochel. You're not allowed to eat its blood. Al oitzish b'chenu kamayim. Spill it on the ground. Lo itarti l'cho domo el l'shavcho. I never let you bloodlet it. I only let you spill its blood. What does spilling its blood mean? Slaughter. In other words, the only right you have to take out blood from Bechor is for the purpose of slaughter for eating. For any other purpose, tough luck. So that's why Rabbi Yehuda says not allowed to bloodlet a Bechor. Even if it's going to die as a result. Mesa Rabbi Abba Mori. Rabbi Abba Mori reject this shita. Rabbi Abba Mori Achoid Rabbi Yehuda said, for Absua Mikdashim Ksiv, by animals which have mumen. Ksiv. There too it says, by now it's about mum, don't eat the blood, spill the blood on the ground like water. So there too you're going to say that it comes to tell you that you cannot bloodlet. All you can do is eat it. Doesn't tell you that there. Nobody holds that an animal which is stam about mum, you can't let its blood. Of course you can. So therefore, if I can't make the drasha over there, I can't make the drasha over here either. So your drasha for Rabbi Yehuda is not a valid drasha. Now we're on the top of Mem Vav on base. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Rabbi Chia bar Abba said, no, you know what? I have another alternate drasha for that pasuk which it says by an animal which is already balmum. I got another alternate drasha for that. And that alternate drasha will cover that case. You know what I'll tell you? I'll tell you lahachshir isamris. That pasuk is telling us that blood is machshir zroim. If it falls on fruit, it makes the fruit royal l'kabel tuma.
We don't need this.
We don't have another pasuk for that.
How are all the liquids here? Dam, mayim?
No, they all have need psukim which teach you that they're like water.
Really?
Yeah.
There's no pasuk for dam?
No. This is it.
Really?
This is it. Just like water is machshir, so too blood is machshir. Rabbi Avo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said that ushneim mikra echad darshu. Rabbanan and Rabbi Shimon who argue Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbanan say you can make can let blood, but you have to make sure not to make a mum. Shimon said you can let blood, but you don't even have to make sure you're not going to make a mum. They both dash in the same pasuk. Tamim, an animal should be whole, l'chotzon, and that will be desired by God. Kol mum le'ebo, and no mum will be in it. Rabbi Shimon dash like this: b'shashu l'chotzon, when it's going to be suitable to be sacrificed, you have to rashli tembo mum. You're not allowed to put a mum in it. However, b'shasha eino l'chotzon, when it's not going to be suitable for sacrifice. In other words, if it already has a mum, or if it's going to drop dead as a result of you not putting, letting its blood, so then it's not going to be certainly going to be suitable. It's not going to be suitable korban. Atarash alitim bo mum, then you're allowed to give mum, put a mum in it. Rabbanan dar, you don't have these words, but Rabbanan darshe, Rabbanan give it to make the drasha. Kol mum liabo afilu kula mum, even if it's completely mummified, meaning it's going to drop dead because of its condition, you have to be meticulously careful not to put in it another mum afterwards. Okay? So they don't go as far as Rabbi Yehuda says, you're not allowed to spill its blood for any purpose except shchita. You're allowed to bled its blood, but you have to be meticulously careful not to make a mum as a result. Okay. Now, the truth is I should go back to the Mishnah and read the Mishnah again, even though we read it yesterday through and through. But I'm not going to go back to the Mishnah. Okay? Let's go further. Rabbi Chama bar Ukva. Mr. Zug, you have the place? We're at Mem Vav and Beis. And we're at the dot, which is 3, 6, 8 lines down. Rabbi Chama bar Ukva, B'Shem Rabbi Yisrael China said, now this is going back on our Mishnah on the second barrel. The second barrel you have the Truma barrel, which is on the top of the wine press, and it's going to imminently fall into lower wine press, which is Tameh. So it said there that like Rabbi Meir, you can even put it to Tameh Kalim in order to save it. Now Rabbi Chaim Baruch Hashem Rabbi Yosef said, what about a kli shetocho tar. You have a vessel whose inside is tar. V'achor tmeim, but its outside is tamei. One of those kelim which are tamei because they came into contact with mashkin. Right? We learned in brachas that a vessel which touches mashkin tmeim, touches to tamei beverages come tamei on the outside of the vessel, not the inside. Midrabanan. That's a kli cheres, right? There is such a thing, but we're talking about a kli cheres is not. I don't think it's betame migabo. Pretty sure about that. The outside doesn't become tummy. If the inside becomes tummy, it comes tummy through and through. The outside becomes tummy. The outside cannot become tummy independently. 99% sure of that. This is only a din d'Rabbanan by kalim which are not kli cheres. Okay, but you checked it up, see if I'm right or wrong about that. Okay, so in any event, Rabbi Chaim and Rabbi Baruch Shem said, "Kli shetocho tar v'chor tmeim," a kli which is inside is tar and the outside is tamei. Ein metamim bo davar memuat. You're not allowed to use it to save the truma in the upper barrel of truma. Why? Because some of the truma will inevitably touch the outside of the keli, and when it touches the outside of the keli, it becomes tamei. Even though the majority of what you save is going to be on the inside, right? And that's going to remain tar. And nonetheless, you're not allowed to do it because of the drops which are going to start to touch the outside. Says more, wait a minute. How can you say this? Vatina didn't learn a mishnah. You can even be matame, put into tame kalim. Oh, I'm sorry. Scratch that. Scratch that. Vatina didn't learn a mishnah. Tered v'tetame v'aitamena biyodov. You're only not allowed to be matame with your hands. Okay, we're not going Rabbi Yeshua now. Rabbi Yeshua says you're allowed to be. We're going Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer said in the Mishnah, you let it go down and become tamei. Don't be matame with your own hands. Okay, this is all Rabbi Yeshua our chart. Rabbi Eliezer says let it go down, become tamei. Don't be matame with your hands. But you're not being matame with your hands now. How's it becoming tamei? By touching the outside of the keli. Big deal. That's not what the Mishnah forbade. The Mishnah only forbade being matame directly with your own hands. So Shmuel Brechia said, Tipoter, you should understand like this. It's a fascinating distinction. Rav Chaim Baruch named Rabbi Yitzchak is talking about when you got shtei kelim, you got two vessels. One, which is a big one, tocho tar, it's got an inside which is tar, v'achorav tmeim, and the outside is tamei. Ve'echad, and another one which is smaller, tocho, now the next word is a typo, tocho ve'achorav torim. Both its inside and its outside are tar. So if you use the big keli, you're going to save much more truma. But some of it will drop on the outside of the keli and become tamei. If you use a smaller keli, you're going to save much less truma, but all of it will remain tar. So that Rabbi Chaim Baruch says, use the smaller vessel, even though you'll be able to save less, because you will not be matame anything that way, even indirectly, because the outside of the keli is also tar. Madamas Nisa, what our Mishnahs are referring to is where you only have a kli echad tamei, where you only have one keli and it's tamei on the outside. Then you have no choice, so then you go ahead and use it, right? Rabbi Mana said another interpretation. He says, Tipoter, so that which Rabbi Chaim Baruch said, not to use a vessel where the inside is tar but the outside is tamei, is bevor tar. Is where if it falls down into the lower wine press, it'll fall into a bore which is tar. So therefore, it's true, it's going to make all the wine in lower press meduma, mixture of truma and chulin. But we'd rather that happen than some droplets go on the outside of the vessel become as a result. Madamas Nisa, that which our Mishnah is talking about, is talking about bebor tamei, where the bore down below is altogether tamei. So therefore, whatever falls down into the bore, that's bad. It's going to become tamei. Not just meduma is going to be created, but tamei is going to be created. So therefore, in that case, you should at least try and save what you can, and you should try to save what you can, even if you have to use a vessel, the outside of which is tummy. V'atninon asked the Gemara, how can you say such a dichotomy between whether we're talking about a case of tumah or not? V'atninon doesn't learn later in the Mishnah. The Mishnah brings down a later case where it was oil. Oil fell. And there the chashash, the problem is not tumah, but rather if it falls, it's going to get absorbed in the ground. And once it gets absorbed in the ground, you won't be able to save it. V'atninon terev v'tivla, didn't we learn? Let it go down and be swallowed. Val yivalena biyadav. And you're not allowed to cause it to be absorbed with your hands. So the Gemara is asking. I forgot what the Gemara is asking. 1 second. Oh yeah, that there. We allow you to use this vessel, the same vessel, the outside of which is tummy, in order to save the oil. Why? If the oil is not going to be tummy anyway. At worst, what's going to happen to the oil? It's going to get absorbed in the ground. Well, that's not gefairlach. We're not causing tumah to it. It's truma oil, which will get absorbed in the ground. It gets absorbed in the ground, big deal. Why, in that case, do we allow you to use the vessel, the outside of which is tummy? So that's what I'll tell you why. Tipater learn it's talking about the Mishnah, even by the oil, it's talking about a tumah issue. Sheniz galgula beis hapras. The oil is falling into a place where there's a cemetery, a suffix cemetery. We don't know for sure, but bones have been discovered in the vicinity. So therefore, there is actually an issue, not just the oil getting absorbed and lost, but also becoming tummy. So there too, it's preferable that instead of the oil getting tummy, that you should save the oil, even a vessel the outside of which is tummy, as long as the inside of it is tahor. Okay? Now, the Mishnah said that Rabbi Shua argued. Rabbi Shua said in both these cases, you can even put the tummy kalim, right? Both the oil and by the wine. Because Rabbi Yeshua said, this is not the type of truma we're concerned in order to maintain a star. Why? Because it's getting lost anyway. It's going to get lost anyway. So when Rabbi Yeshua made the statement, Al daitun the chevraya, according to the chevraya, who said that this whole second Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, right? And it's Rabbi Meir who holds that you're allowed to that which is imminently going to become tameh, or that which is a suffix tumah, or that which is tluya, or that which is imminently going to become tameh. They're all the same thing. You could burn them. So according to if this Rabbi Meir named Rabbi Yeshua, so he means both chavis rishon and chavis shniya. That not only in the second barrel can it just be metamed, but even in the first barrel. Although there, in the way the Mishnah said it said reveal it, but don't be metamed. That's because there was a separate Tana according to the Chevraya. That was Rabbi Yossi who said reveal it, but don't be metamed. But the second Mishnah, Rabbi Yeshua says that this is not the type of truma which you have to continuously safeguard, since that's Rabbi Meir named Rabbi Yeshua. He would even say that about the case of the first barrel. And he would say that even in the first barrel, which is Savi Tumakurt, go ahead, just get rid of it, burn it, do whatever you want with it. Al-Daited Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi Yossi, the Amora, who said that that's not true, that there's no dichotomy between Meir and Rabbi Yossi. He's the one who asked all the questions and said that it's all the same Mishnah consistently. So he says, so according to him, it's clear that this first barrel, which is Safi Tumah, occurred, that even that it's not a separate Tana, but rather it is the same Tana saying reveal, but don't be Matamiyat. So what's the Zev Zeh that Rabbi Yeshua later on says you can be Matamiyat and put it into Tameh buckets? So that's, he's going on Chavish Shal Yain v'Chavish Shal Shemen. It's only going on the Sefer, on the barrel of Truma that's imminently going to fall into somewhere Tameh anyway. Whether it's tumas beis hapras, if it's oil, or the tumah of a lower wine press which contains tamei wine. So in both those cases, though, since they're both going to fall into tamei, both in those cases, al zeh, on both the wine and the oil, he says that you're allowed to use tamei kalim in order to stop it from getting mixed up with your chulin and ruining your chulin as a result.
But in the ratio, the reason why We're dealing with suffix too, so are we saying that in the ratio he would still say you could actually cause?
Not called Rabbi Yossi Bar Zvido.
Well,
Rabbi Yossi Damora holds that this is not a separate ton of the ratio, but rather, so it has to be consistent throughout. So he would say that the same Rabbi Yeshua, this is not a separate Rabbi Yeshua, rather the same Rabbi Yeshua said that in the two cases of the Sefer, where it's oil and wine, which are truma, which are going to fall into Tamei Chulin, that there you don't have to say the truma b'ta'ara, because eventually it's going to cause you great sorrows. Nonetheless, in the ratio, you would still say where there's no greater sorrows being caused, rather you have a barrel in which a suffix tuma has occurred, which stands on its own. So then he would say there you cannot just go and be metameit, you have to maintain some degree of shmir on it. It's only a suffix tuma, and it's not endangering anything else. It's not falling into some other chulin thing. Okay? Now, we go on to the next part of the Mishnah. It said there that if you have the next part of the Mishnah, I'm going to just tell you outside. It said there in the Mishnah, it said that if you have a bunch of loaves of truma, the guy comes and says, we want one of them. So the guy's going to be metamit. So we're not allowed to give him any of the loaves. He might take all of them as though being metamit, all of them. Yes, but we can't volunteer a loaf anyway. Can't volunteer a loaf. Not allowed to. So says more. Now we're on the second to last line of Memphah and base. Lo mistaber im hoysa ben kikor tmeya. That's not true if one of them was tummy. If one of them was tummy, so give him the tummy truma. Okay? Don't be foolish. Similarly, it would say there if you have a bunch of women, and the Goyim say, okay, we want one of them to rape the woman, so now to give any of the women. They all get raped as a result, still, you can't give any of them. So lo mistabri moisa b'hem shivcha. If one of them is a shivcha, and a shivcha is anyway permissible to a goy, right? Shivcha is allowed to have relations with the goy, so then you give the goy the shivcha to have relations with her. Okay, now very important gemaras, nothing to do with trumos. Very important. Tanya, ready? Top of Mem Zayin Rav. Kill him. Min lavin if not Arbeinu Orgim is going to kill all of you. Afilu kulam nerogin, even if all of them will be killed as a result. They're not allowed to give over even one Jewish soul to be killed. Let's say the Goyim said, we want specific one of you. We want Ruvain. Sheva ben Bichri, such as the case where the Goyim would come and say, we want Sheva ben Bichri, case of chapter in Tanakh.
He was one who's already did Nisa.
That's what I was going to say in a minute. Yimsro, so they give him Bayar Gukulam, and they shouldn't all be killed. Idmar, we learned the big machlokas. Hashem Elohesh Omer, V'ushei Chayim Misa Kashem Bichri. Shem Bichri was already, he was a Mori B'machos, he rebelled against David HaMelech. So he was a doomed individual anyway. Only in that case do we give him over. Rabbi Yochanan Marav Bishenu Chayim Misa, even though he's not Chayim Misa, Kisheva ben Bichri, like Sheva ben Bichri. In other words, as long as they designated one, it's a very big machlok in Rambam Shulchan Aruch. The Ram says the only time you give over a Jew is if he's already is liable to a death penalty anyway. The Shulchan Aruch says you can give over a Jew as long as they ask for a specific one, even if it's not yet liable to a death penalty. And I'm sure in cases Rahman al-Islam like the Holocaust, this is very much halach l'maisa, this type of situation. Okay? Now we have a maisa like this. Ula bar kosher. Tavasei malchusa. Yeah.
The quick shiloh was the Nazis would list names every day that people they're going to kill. So father had a situation where his son was the named one, and the shiloh was he found a way that he could save his son, but it meant not to grab somebody else. So he asked the shiloh, can he save his son? Yeah. So the tears given to him is, I don't have swarm, I can't give you an answer. So the father's unbelievable answer was, I understand what you're telling me, I'm not going to save his son.
Wow.
Unbelievable answer.
Okay. Ula b'kosher. Tavasei malchusa. Ula kosher was demanded by the king, by the kingdom. Orak v'azu leilulud. So he went and fled to Lud. Gabi Rabbi Shimon Levi by Rabbi Shimon Levi. Asun Vakfu Medina, so they came and laid siege to the city. Armilon, they said to him, "In lace atun yavin lay lon. If you don't give us ula bar kosher, anu mecharvina Medina, so we're going to destroy the city." So Sali Kaber Rabbi Shimon Levi went to ula bar kosher, who Paisen convinced ula bar kosher to go for Yav alone and gave him over to the goyim. Havelio zochel to Havelio Navi Yolif was a custom Mizgali Lavi to come to Rabbi Shimon Levi. V'lo Mizgali, he didn't come anymore. V'tzam Kamatomi, Rabbi Shimon Levi fasted several fasts. Mizgali Lavi and Elio came back. Amar Lei, so Elio said, Vilna Cyrus ani nigle. I should reveal myself to people who master Jews over. Amar Lei, so he said, V'lo Mishnah Sisi. So he said, didn't I do like the Mishnah? In other words, it says that if they designate somebody, I'm allowed to give him up. So says the Gemara, Amar Lei. So he said, V'su Mishnah's Chasidim he, but Chasidim don't do such things. In other words, if you're a Chassid, it wouldn't. So the Chazon Ish says an amazing thing on this. Brings down here in the back. The Chazon Ish says two interpretations in this. First of all, he says that if a person is really Chassid, Hashem wouldn't have caused such a thing to happen by him. If a person is really a righteous, pious person, Hashem wouldn't have put him in such a situation. That's one thing the Chazon Ish said. Then the Chazon Ish said, and if it does happen, he should daven out for it, and for sure his tefillah will be accepted, and that he won't have to give over this Jew. But others say that that's the Chazon Ish. But others say the pshat is that he shouldn't have gone and convinced him. He should have let somebody else do it, or he shouldn't have done it with such alacrity. He should have waited until the last possible moment when they're actually coming to the city. He should have tried to push it off and not gone and done it with such haste. Okay. Yeah, the question is though what he could have done instead. So at least he should have delayed. That's what I'm saying. Okay, very famous case we're about to learn. Very, very famous case in halacha.
Somewhere in the back of this thing about Ilya.
This specific case, I don't recall. It's possible. I don't recall such things. No, I don't think so. I don't recall. Rabbi Yisi Rabbi Yisi was staying captive in Sapsusa. Rabbi Yehuda said, "Yikorech hames bistino." Prepare for him shrouds, right? Because he's gone. Rabbi Shimon said, "Ad anakatil." Either here, ad means either. Either I will kill, or I will be killed. But regardless, Anezel, I'm going with Shazit Levechela and saving him by force. Now, also he went Upaisun V'Yavanle, and he convinced them, and they gave him to Reish Lakish Ravisi. Amralun. So that was not the end of the Maisa. Reish Lakish said to the captors, "V'asun Gabi Salon, come to our old man, to our Rebbe, to Rabbi Yochanan, for Matzei Yochanan, and he'll daven for you." V'asun Gabi Rabbi Yochanan, they came for Rabbi Yochanan. Amralun, Rabbi Yochanan gave them a bracha. Madahava belibcha ma'abilei, that which you wanted to do to Rabbi Yisei, Yam Teilu Ama may come to your nation. Needless to say, Lamatun Af Yosrus, they hadn't yet even reached the city of Afis Yosrus, Adazukul, by the time which they were all killed, because they had in mind originally to kill Rav Yisi, so that what's happened in boomeranged on them. Now from here the post can bring a raya, that one is supposed to put himself in a suffix sakana in order to save somebody else's life. Because Reish Lakish put himself in suffix sakana, which is a contradiction to the Radbaz and others who say you don't have to put yourself in the suffix sakana in order to save other people's lives. So the thing is that it's not, the Achronim say, the Beis Yosef I think brings this raya, but the Achronim say it's not a good raya because Reish Lakish first of all volunteered himself. Secondly, Reish Lakish was an old hand at this because he used to be a bandit himself. So he was a baki in the malacha. This doesn't necessarily apply to anybody else. Okay? Razira Barchina itse b'Sapsusa. Zira Barchina was staying captive in Sapsusa. Solik Rabbi Yam Rabbi Shmuel ben Faisei Loave. Rabbi Yam Rabbi Shmuel went to try and convince his captors to let him go. Armalon, so they said, Armalon Zanvaya the Malkusa. So the queen of the area, I'm not sure exactly how to translate, but the queen of the area said, Yalfu Baraichon. I guess she wasn't able to conquer the bandits herself, but she gave them bracha. Your creator is accustomed avad l'chon nisim, to make for you nisim. So you'll get him out. Mashkin Bey. In the meantime, the captors raised the price on him. Olo Chad Sarke. So one Arab came in. Ton Chad Safsar, holding a sword. Amar Lon, he said to the bandits, the captors, Ba'ara Safsira, with this sword, Koto Barnitzur, the Barnitzur was the head of the bandits, killed Lachoi, the brother of this captive. So they had Rachmanis on the captive, the Ishtaz of Zir Bachinana, they let Zir Bachinana go, because his brother was already killed, so they weren't going to kill him as well. Rabbi Yochanan, fascinating case. Rabbi Yochanan, Ikpich, he was mugged, Bale Kanye among the reeds. Sold the base vadas, he went to base medish. Rabbi Shimon Lakish Shoyle, Shimon started talking to him. V'lo Magiv, he didn't respond. Amalei, so his Rabbi Shimon Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan Ba'ochem, what's going on? Amalei, so he said, I'll tell you, Kol Evrim Pluim Balev. All the limbs are contingent on the heart. V'alev Tolei Be'kisa, and the heart is contingent on the money, literally on the wallet. My wallet is gone, and I feel bad. Amalei, so he said, Umaokein. So he said, so Rishon said, what happened? Amalei Dav this kisi. I lost my wallet. Amalei Markan. So Rishon said, what are you doing here? You're not going to find the base medrash. Amalei, so he says, what can I do? Akapchis, I was mugged in the reed, so I can't get it back. Amalei, so Rishon said, you don't have these three words. Amalei Chamili Zavisa. So he said, what? You do? He said, show me the place, the angle, the corner where it happened. Nothing mechavile. So Rabbi Yochanan went down and showed it to Reish Lakish. Chamisun minachik. So Reish Lakish saw the bandits at a distance, the pickpockets. Mishayim Mitzaltos, so he started whistling, and I guess it's a secret whistle. In other words, like he said, you should come to me and give me back the wallet. So the bandits said, we didn't know we were stealing from Rabbi Yochanan. They were bandits, but they were Reish Shamayim bandits. They were the same bandits who davened before they went to rob the house, right? Saying, Rabbi Yochanan, if it's the Rebbe, Yasapag will give him back half of the take. Armalon, so Reish Lakish said, Chayechon, Kulan and Nasif, I want all of the take. V'nasav Kulan, he took back all the money which was taken from Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, final mice in this parak. That's comments, right? Final mice, fascinating mice. Diklut Chazira. Diklut was a hog grower. Mechune Taliyad Rabbi Yunasi. So the kids in the house of Rabbi Yunasi, the Amora, the grandson of Rabbi Yunasi, used to beat him up. After time went by, Savin Melch, Diklut became a king. He was upset still, the Jews. Nachas the Pamias. He went down to Pamias once, and he wanted to get the rabbis in trouble. What? The Banyas, right? Shal Kesavin. So he Sibsara Bonin. So he sent messages to the rabbis. Tahavan Gawu lived in Tveria. Tahavan Gaboy, be by me, b'mafke shub miyad, immediately when Shabbos goes out. Amel Shluche, but he said to his messengers, Lo titin l'ksavin, don't give the Jews these messages, el baruvta, only Erev Shabbos, im metume shamsho, as the sun is setting. In other words, so they won't be able to get it here on time, because they're not going to be, and I'll be able to get them through that. Vava Rabbi Yehuda Nasi of Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman, Nachtin Lemische, they're going down to swim, to go to the mikveh, B'dimus in the Tveria, in the baths, our public baths in Tveria. Asa Argentine Beikabeon. So Argentine, the demon of the bathhouse, came after them. Ubar Rabbi Nasi Elaminza Beis. Rabbi Nasi wanted to rebuke him and shoo him away. Shmuel Bar Nachman said, Arpele, leave him alone. If he revealed himself to us, he must be in order to make for us miracles. So he says. So the Argentine started speaking to them and said, Maraban Uvdin, how the rabbis doing? So they told him a story that they just got this message from Diklut, and they're very upset. What are they going to do about it? So he said, so he said to them, Schon, swim in peace. The Variachon Avlchon Nisan, your Creator will do for you miracles. So as Shabbos went out, as Shabbos will go out, I'll carry you. I'll take you to the gates of Pamias. And they took them very speedily right after Shabbos to where they had to go. Okay, so Diklut was defeated on that count. So they said to him, the rabbis are outside. So he said, so Diklut said, Lo Yachmun Apai, they can't see me, Ad the Inun Sakin, until they go to the mikveh. V'hava Ha'upei Bani, there's a certain bathhouse there, As is Shiva Yom Shiva Levim, which is already heated up for 7 days and 7 nights. And it was very hot, and if they would have bathed there, they would have been scalded to death. Norfolk, so Argentine went out, Umazga Kodemeon, and mixed the bathhouse waters with cold water, Valulon, and they went in, V'klamin Kume, and they stood before the king. Amar Lunse said, Begin to Barachon Avolach Nisun, only because your creator makes you miracles. Atum Vauzi Malchusa, you have the chutzpah to degrade the king. In other words, I remember when your kids used to throw rocks at me or whatever they did. And now I see you, I can't do anything to you because there's so many miracles. But you guys you are not good, not right. Relates to they said, you misunderstand. We never be mavazi you as king. Tiklu chazira bazina. Diklu, the hog grower, we degraded. The kletianus, malka. Now that you're the emperor, dikliatanus, lo bazin, we will never embarrass you now. Right, that was him. Afilu Kain, nonetheless, we learn from here a Musar Askel. Lo tavasrun. Do not mock. What? Yeah, here he changes it to lo tavasrun. Do not make a mockery or scoff. Lo b'romi zoyer, not a small Roman. Lo b'chaver zoyer, and not a small Persian, because you never can tell. The next day they might become the kings, because their kingships are not hereditary. Who knows what would happen next? Okay, let's just start the next parak so we can do it. Say we did two blot. Right. What?
We can say it not
right. Hazareh truma. If somebody plants truma, shogeg unintentionally, you turn it over. Mazin, if you planted the truma mazin, you continue growing it, but it all has the din of truma. Whatever grows, midrabanan. If already grew a third, bein sholi bein mazin, whether you grew it originally planted intentionally or unintentionally, you leave it in the ground. With pishtam, but by flax, maize, if you plant intentionally, you turn it over. Why do you turn it over? Because there's too much hano otherwise from the reeds. Okay, let's just start the Gemara. He divides it up. Wait a minute. You're finding more the guy who planted b'shogeg because you're making him turn over the crop. The guy that made you allow him to grow. Shouldn't we turn around and say that the guy that is amazing, he should turn over the crop, and the guy that is shogeg, he's allowed to sustain it? No. On the contrary. It's more of a knas to make him keep it. Because if he turns it over, he can replant that year and replant chulin. But this way he's got to keep it and keep it to truma till the very end. Now Rabbi Shulbar Abduroima boy, what if he's a Kohen? And he wants to keep truma because it's good for him. So is he believed to say he's mazin and keep a truma? Amrulo, so they said it depends. Ima Yumakirin, if we knew he planted b'shogeg, lav kol imenu, we don't trust him, and we don't, and therefore we say you have to uproot it. And if now we don't know, he told us we have to believe him. Okay, we'll stop here for this evening.